Hello, hello. Welcome into the Addenda series where I'm going to do a quick but detailed overview over one specific addenda so that you get your information quick. Today's video is going to be regarding the addendum for a backup contract. Now, let me tell you something. You would think that this was self-explanatory, but it is not. This is an addendum for a backup contract. So let me tell you exactly why you would use this addendum. I can think of two reasons off the top of my head. One, you were in a multiple offer situation, and the seller or the listing agent lets you know as the buyer agent, we are going to accept this contract, but just in case that falls through, we want to accept your contract as well, but as a backup. So then you would be the backup contract. So then you would need to add the backup addendum. Okay. Or if there's a house that's already under contract, okay, you would reach out to that listing agent or seller and you would say, hey, I know that your house is under contract and you're still in the option period or an option active contingent or active kickout situation. Is your seller open to still letting our buyer, my buyer, come and view the property? And if we do decide to send an offer, would you be willing to accept us as a backup? Just in case the original offer that you currently have that's under contract falls through, you have one in place to now move on. Instead of going right back on the market, you could come to us because we are the backup. And then on the listing side, when you have multiple offers or when your house is already under contract, instead of potentially going back on the market when an offer falls through, or just to make sure that you have two different buyers that could buy the same property, if one falls in and one falls out, you have a backup. You don't have to go back on the market immediately. You've got a backup already ready to go and it immediately goes into play. So now the document. When you actually have a contract that gets executed on the original, you are the winning contract. You have option and earnest money that you have to turn in, and the executed contract date, and everything starts flowing. The backup offer is actually the exact same way. So although this person that is filling this out is the backup, you still fill in the option and earnest money. You still have to deliver the option and earnest money within the 3 days of the effective date of the backup contract. You still need to go in and do your inspections and the due diligence and all of that good stuff, because if the original contract falls through by this specific date, okay, the backup contract is contingent upon termination of the previous contract. And the previous contract's date goes here. So today is February 11th. If the previous contract that's already there, the one that won the deal, if they went under contract and their executed date is February 10th, okay, so then I'm putting February 10th in this date, in this box here, because I need to put the execution date of the original contract here. And then I'm saying on this spot that if that contract does not terminate on or before this date, so I could say, okay, the original contract was dated February 10th, yesterday, but we're going to give it until February 17th. If the original contract does not terminate or fall through by February 17th, then my buyer, who is now the backup, is going to receive a refund of their earnest money, and we're going to move on. Okay. The option money still stays with the seller. There is no situation where the option money doesn't stay with the seller. Once it's paid, it goes automatically to the seller. Even though you are the backup, you are still paying for the same option period due diligence as the original buyer. You don't get any slack just because it's a backup. Okay. But again, they must turn the money in. The buyer authorizes the escrow officer to release that money, to the option money, to the seller immediately. And here are the repercussions if that buyer does not turn in their earnest and option money on time. There is no option fee. Seller can terminate and still require the earnest money. All of the same things that are listed in the actual contract, because this is a real contract. It's just the backup. Okay. So just remembering that you need to, if you are going to be a backup, you do need to know the execution date of the original contract, which goes here. Your client, as the backup, is still turning in the earnest and option money within 3 days of the effective date of the backup contract offer, and you have to come up with a time period. How much time are you going to give the original contract to fall through? And then the beautiful part, that's just a recap of what we talked about so far. Now, how does this actually work? So let's just say February 10th. So we're going to put 2/10, and then in this box it's 2026. We're gonna it's that house contract executed on February 10, 2026, but we're gonna give it to February 17th, 2026 to terminate. Well, February 15th comes in and that original buyer sends in their termination. Well, automatically in a different situation, that buyer would send in their termination. The listing side, as long as it's contractually approved, they would sign the release of earnest money. They would put the house back on the market and they would be okay with the termination. And now we're back open to showings. If you're the backup contract, it actually goes right back into active option period if that's where you are in your situation, depending on how many option days you have chosen as well. And then now, instead of going back on the market as active, you are now the winner. You are the contract. So now you are the one that's in play. It automatically happens. Your earnest and option money were already taken. You've already done your inspection. You've already sent your amendment for negotiating repairs. You were literally in live action. February 15th comes in, and then boom, now you're pending and you're ready to go. Okay. So again, you are doing all your negotiations, you're turning in earnest and option money, you're doing the inspection as if you were the original contract. What I would caution you on, if you have a client that wants to put in a backup offer, but then, and the backup offer gets accepted, remember, earnest and option money, inspections, all that needs to happen. That's money coming out of your buyer's pocket. And then down the way, 2 or 3 days later, while you're still waiting on the original contract to terminate, your buyer decides, you know what, I like this house better over here. I want to put an offer in over here. Then you would need to then terminate during your backup offers option period, receive your release of earnest money because you should be within your option period when this happens, hopefully. And then you go ahead and put in another offer on this other house that then still requires, again, earnest option money inspections, etc. Okay. So I caution you to allow your buyer to put in an offer when they already have a backup offer in place. Also, what you don't want is they love this house over here, do the inspection, decide to go with this house, and you forget to terminate on this end. And then this offer actually goes into play. And now you have 2 active live contracts. Ooh, if that ever happens, make sure you give me a call. But other than that, that's the backup addenda. Hopefully that helps. Have a good one. Bye.